That's pretty hard.
That's pretty hard. Okay, next time.
Yeah?
Yeah, next time. Next time I want to get jingle.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Maybe
Then,
actually
David? Oh, yes, we have somewhere over the room. Otherwise, send me the slides.
Yeah, the browser went.
And send me the link. Send me the link. Send me the link.
All these?
Yes, all links.
What's that?
What's what?
What's the Slack? No?
Yeah, it's Mattermost.
Huh?
It's Mattermost. It's a Slack clone. The problem is...
Better or why?
No, worse.
Wait, why do you use it?
But self-hosted.
It's self-hosted. And
You're
so
scared about privacy?
No, this is called legal obligations towards your clients.
Because your client forces you
Yeah.
to not use Slack.
Because we have to protect our data and we have to underwrite that we protect the data of the clients. Right, where's my mouse? David, waiting.
Maybe Barbara want to talk about the developers.
Yes. Okay. For our very well organized event. Hi guys, there's Peter.
So, hi guys, my name is Barbara and together with Natalie Comadera, we founded a new meetup. With David and Jacob and Thomas Schranz, we organized the BotsHub meetup now for 1 year, but through a nice coincidence, we are happy to present the new developer circle in Vienna, sponsored by Facebook. So this is a meetup series where we want to have each meetup will have a different topic. So the next one, or the first one of the developer circle meetups will be on the 2nd of October, and the topic will be chatbots.
Eddie, you're on the light. Eddie.
Oh.
So this
No,
will...
no.
Alright.
Stop.
So, and it's not only on the 2nd of October, because we are just funny, and it's also my birthday, but it's also on the 2nd of October because it's going to be a side event of the chatbots conference.
Yes.
And this would be the perfect Überleitung to David.
Yeah, that would be if I would be ready.
Okay, so what about the Facebook developer circles? What we also do is that we want to present it as a developer circle. So it's Natalie is also, because we are co-organizing this, Natalie is also about bringing in some user experience or UX, UI topics, but it should be mainly for developers. And so when you are curious about new frameworks or new technologies or innovation in general, just come to our meetups. We gonna have, and I'm super happy to have that, we are going to have free beer and also food. So this is sponsored by Facebook, but it's not only about Facebook topics. It's about random developer topics we can pick. So next time it's going to be about chatbots, and the second meetup will be about, I think it is going to be about OCR, but every meetup should have a different topic. So if you're curious, come there, and we are happy to meet you there at our meetup. Thanks.
All right. Yep. No, not left. That's on. Let's see. Where's my mouse?
Right. So, thank you, Barbara. chiming in and talking about Facebook Developer Circle while I was preparing my talk. Yeah, I'm the co-organizer of the Chatbot.conf. We did it last year the first time. It was Europe's first conference about messaging and chatbots. Last year we had around 400 people, and we decided to do it again because we actually got a lot of good feedback. People really liked it. So we decided to do it again and also make it a bit bigger. So the conference will be on 2nd and 3rd of October. The 2nd of October will be a day of community events. So there will be events independently organized throughout the city and for different topics about messaging, chatbots. There's also the Facebook Developer Circle. And the actual conference day will be the 3rd of October at the Esteban campus, and we expect around 600 people. We already started announcing our first lineup of speakers. So we have Albert Sanger from Facebook, we have JJ Hirschman from Twitter, Helen Tseng, different Tseng from Slack. Invis joining, we have ChatFuel, TransferWise. Today we announced a new speaker from Booking.com, and we're also going to announce a couple of more speakers. So it will be a really great lineup for Chatbot conference. And yeah, nothing more to add about the Chatbot conference, I think. Just excited.
How many digits?
12. Yeah, that's basically about Chatbot.com. So do you have something to announce? I don't know if I jump into the
Awesome. It's going to be amazing.
Of course. Cool. Then I'm going to jump right into my talk. We don't have an escape here.
That's all digital.
Okay, I'm talking about the new updates about the best messaging platform out there, which is Telegram. Because 2 days ago they actually released a small update, and later on I will come to the second coolest messenger, which is Messenger. They have a few cool new features. I mean, in my opinion, Telegram is the best messenger out there, especially they have the most enhanced bot platform. So if you haven't checked it out, you should definitely do that. There are a few new things you can do. You can do inline mentions. So in Telegram you can do mention people inline in bots. So you basically have inline bots which you can call in every conversation. You don't need to add the bot to the conversation. And now you can also mention people who don't have a username set. So you can basically mention everyone in the conversation, if it's a group conversation or one-on-one conversation for a bot.
I cannot read that. Das ist ein bisschen größer.
Nur die Touchpad, oder? Wie beim Handy, ja, genau.
I am not the control.
Just leave it.
I'm just leaving it. It's
Now you scroll somewhere.
okay. Cool new features, check it out. I'm gonna head over to the Messenger news, which is probably more interesting for all of you because Messenger has more than 1 billion active users, and Telegram only has around 100 million. Still is very Messenger. So what happened on the Messenger platform? They basically had 2 new features introduced. One is the built-in natural language processing. So actually, instead of just giving you the text message of what the user is writing, they also give you like entities. What does the messages mean? At this point, it's very, very basic. So the only thing they can actually extract dates, greetings, and emails. Emails.
Yeah,
It's super basic. I actually don't know why they introduced a separate feature because everyone can do it on their own. Anyway, built in NLP. I think they need something to announce. Now I announce it. But what you can also do is adding your with AI. If you, for example, have a bot on with AI, you can actually connect it to your Facebook page through the Facebook Messenger settings, which is also a new feature that you use. And I think you're going to follow up on these features, so there basically will be more enhancement over time. For now, it's really basic. The second one they introduced is the handover protocol, which is a really cool thing. I actually was in touch with Facebook itself, with the engineering team, and proposed a handover protocol, which I put into a white paper back then. And the idea had for Facebook Messenger and actually every messaging platform is that it should have some kind of app-to-app communication or bot-to-bot communication. Because, especially on Facebook Messenger, it's possible to add multiple apps to a page. So if, for example, a user starts messaging, this message is passed to every app. And the apps don't know about the other apps, and they don't know what the other apps are doing. Which means, in the worst case, you can end that the user is receiving messages from multiple apps. For example, you can connect chat to your app, you can connect ManyChat to the app, but also other different bot builders. And then you have 3, 4, 5 bot builders connected to your app, and if you write hi, then 5 apps gonna reply because they don't know of each other. So I was proposing that they should do some kind of app-to-app communication where they use the handover protocol. They can hand over the bot conversation to a live chat, which is needed for many, especially bigger companies. And what I was proposing is some kind of discovery feature. So the idea was that if a message comes in, you have basically one main app who is actually active and receives the message and can handle it. And if, for example, one of these apps decides it needs to pass the control over to a different app, it will broadcast the message to all the other apps, and with the recipient ID of the app ID, which means the app, one app knows that this message belongs to him, and it should take over the control over the thread, and the other should stop responding. What came out of this and some other feedback was the handover protocol, which is a bit different. It's still better, but the idea is that you can define one primary app and multiple secondary apps, which means if a user starts texting a page, the primary app has the control of the thread, and they get every message. And if they decide that they can't handle the conversation, or for example, if they want to hand it over to a live chat or a live person, then they just send a thread to pass thread control, which means they're passing the control of the thread to a different API, to a different app. And this looks, no, this is just setting it up. So basically define the target app ID, which should take over the control of the thread, and the recipient ID, which is the page code user ID. And you can add some additional data to that. So the idea is that you have like one main app, which has the control over the thread, and this main app or primary app can distribute the control of the thread to other apps which you connect. Typical use case is live chat. And one more thing which you can also do is to take back the control. So for example, if the primary app decides, okay, either the other apps are not responding or not active, they can take back the control. Which means you by yourself, you as the page admin, can define which apps are the primary apps and which one are secondaries. And the primary has basically all the same about the user flow. And that's basically about the takeover API and all the new stuff about Facebook Messenger.
Can you still read the messages when you hand it
out? This is one important thing because especially when you hand over conversations to a live chat, you need the context of what was going on previously. And all the secondary apps can subscribe to a standby channel, which means you get all the messages in from the API to a standby feed. As long as they're not active, they're getting all the messages in.
The other apps can still be standalone.
They can still be standalone, it doesn't matter. So for example, we can define chat field as a primary app, but also as a secondary app.
And then you have two different Facebook IDs if you talk to them.
No, it's the page for the lead. The page is the same, but the user is the same. Other questions?
Yeah. I think I tried that we can also connect the external to kind of take care of the like, for example, customer cares request or something. At some point it handed over. So just use this app ID or something like that to communicate with the messenger.
Basically, what you need to do is a Facebook page admin is, for example, you connect your Facebook page to one app like Chat Fuel, and then a different app which is capable of communicating with this other app.
Okay, so you need a compatible tool for that.
You need a compatible tool as it is right now, but you can also implement it by yourself.
And you know some apps which are currently available for Android? Ratio? I don't know. Okay. Use case? So this one I was basically backend for like social media things. Outside it's just support. Yes. It's like you get the ticket and then you work. Interesting.
But I think like every ticketing system is
That's a good discussion.
Okay,
What are other use cases than support?
I mean, you can basically use it for bot-to-bot communication, which is really interesting. So, for example, if you develop a bot and you know that you have just one niche use case and you figure out that the user is asking something which is not your use case, you might can pass it on to a different bot. For example,
can you type like additional values to it? Like if it's like Smelly, can I scope it like it's Smelly because it's like if they implement it, can I scope it like to only fashion related Smelly?
for example, yeah.
I mean, it's talking at the moment with the scope.
I mean, if Sven, for example, implements one thing about the bot that they need, or they figure out it's like some fashion question which they can't answer, they can reach out to other backend. So the thing is, it's not another bot answering, at least for the user, because it's the same, it's still Svenny answering, but it could call a different backend. And this is something which basically is the bot-to-bot communication, so the user actually doesn't really know that a different service is answering, but you can combine different services in the backend. And that's super interesting. Because that's basically the next step.
Also way better than having them all like implemented their own custom APIs because it would fuck up so much.
Also, a quite nice use case is if you have like a huge enterprise and you have like a concierge bot. Yeah. The concierge bot says, okay, you want to talk to marketing, and then you pass it on to the marketing bot, and then you select this is sales, and you pass it on to the sales bot.
Also, if a lot of restaurants start to implement bots or something like this, and somebody's like making
a standard bot,
like Cat's chatbots, which makes like a recommendation for a restaurant, and then you could just pass your over to
like a secondary bot. If your own bot fails, you can pass it on to a backup, and then the backup will still deliver.
I think like this kind of stuff, like this app communication is a great opportunity for many service providers, or many services which still need to be developed, especially if we're talking about ERP services or some, let's say, domain-specific ERP services, which at the moment don't exist.
So think of a white-labeled restaurant bot. Like you have your own bot, basically. You have a good service that implements that. You can basically white-label through the entire ecosystem.
Is it like a database of like how do I find like bots which offer this kind of service?
It's quite SEO.
But what is the benefit of like one bot asking the other bot directly?
People do it with your bot.
Yeah, no, but I could just put a flag in my database and say, okay, this now the thread is going to another bot.
It's true, but for every service
So, what I'm going to talk about? I'm going to talk about something that we discovered. I call it a growth hack, about how to grow your bot very efficiently and very fast. This procedure we tried with 2 teams already in our accelerator, and both of them have yielded really good results. So it's a really good strategy of getting users into your bot, which is kind of the old discovery problem that you have, right? Because there is no bot store, there is the discovery tab is rolling out really slowly, people are not getting it. This is a really nice feature of what you do. So where are we, or what are we hacking, right? So where are we in the process? As you know, everyone should know about the R pipeline. So this growth hack especially applies for acquisition and activation. So we're really in this early stage where you have a lot of users probably on your page, but they are not converted yet into the chatbot. You want to activate them, or you want to acquire them actually into that channel that you have, right? So this is a problem we for example have with a lot of people. So think about, for example, a big corporation like Vienna. They have 50,000 people who are liking the page, but they have 0 people chatting with them, right? So this is a huge problem of getting, if they would implement theoretically a chatbot, then how do they get people from the page right into the bot, right? This is a classical acquisition activation problem, right? So how would you do that, right? You would probably do messaging advertisements. You would probably go and put money on the street and say hey, you can chat to my bot, blah 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 blah, right? And then people would have to click, and you would have to pay for it and everything. Right? Yeah, if you have the budget, that's nice. But if you can hack it, that's even better. So one thing that we found, which is really interesting, if you dive in to the Facebook Graph API, so we're not talking about the messaging API that you all guys are using for your bots, but I'm talking about the good old Graph API, the one that they released, almost feels years ago, years back, when you actually had to access the graph of the users. There is something very interesting. It's called a private reply, right? So this reference describes the private reply edge of the comment node. The edge can be used by a page to send private messages, replies to comments on their posts, right? So this is really interesting because the post is actually, you basically send post request to the comment ID with a private reply, and you transmit some data. And the actual interesting thing that happens is, if you do that, the messaging app will pop up, and Facebook will say, this is to reply of this Facebook post, and then you actually get a message in that pop-up. So you're actually in messaging, you're opening up the messaging interface, right? And if you then start typing, you're in the bot. So you're actually forced into that channel, which is really, really interesting. So what would be the plan, right? The plan, for example, would do a social campaign. I've taken Swelly here because I think everyone's familiar with it. And you would post something like, what is your favorite XYZ? Comment with hashtag A or hashtag B, right? The user would then make a comment. You would register the comment, and you would use the Graph API to then post back something like, hey, congrats, you were X% correct, can you also correct the next one? And then you would send the next message as the actual bot. Right? So for the user, it would feel like they press a comment, right? You get the data from the comment, and then you would say private reply, the messaging thing pops up. So the user types a comment, and then immediately after the messaging pops up, he would get a customized message saying, yes, you choose A, yes, you choose B. And then it would force you to go into the full circle of the actual bot, right? Because you already are in the messaging, so the next message he types is already the first message of your bot. Right? So this is a very, very frictionless process that you actually can go through. And then from there onwards, you actually have a full user for your bot. So what's really interesting with that is that something like, I can do a comment, which is something every user is accustomed to, right? We all have this A or B, post your comment, link your friend shit that we know from Facebook. So this is something people do, which is in their habit. But this habit triggers that they actually get into the bot. The bot has a customized, oh, you choose A, which is, oh yes, that's what I did. And then they're hooked into the process. So you have an actual way of hooking them into your flow within the app. Only problem is, you need this comment ID. Right? This is a little bit of a trick, because you need this comment ID in the normal graph API to initiate a private reply. But don't worry, here's how you can get it. So you have discovered that in your app, you have the webhook, the messenger and the webhook. And the webhook basically here has all the graph API hooks. And somewhere down the road, you have the feed that you can subscribe to. This is relatively new, that you can subscribe to the actual feed of your page, which means you get everything that happens on the page. It's literally like a fire hydrant, right? Every like, every comment, every new post, every deleted comment, everything. You get literally an update for everything that happens on the page. And what is really interesting is, you get this item, comment, verb, add, and then you get to the comment ID. So what you can do is you can subscribe to that entire feed of what's happening on the page, and then you filter for item, comment, verb, add, right? So this is a new comment being placed. And then you have the comment ID, which you can then use for the private reply action. Right? So with that, you can actually go into, wait, that's the wrong slide. You can actually go into this request, put in the comment ID that you want to respond to, private reply, and place the data field, right? And you immediately get an update where it's happening. It's like, hey, you already did that. And what's also very convenient with that request, you get the actual message, which is the actual comment that the user wrote. So you can even take that message and run it through your NLP. You can really do sophisticated stuff where you do entity extraction, entity recognition, entities extraction, basically from it. Right? So you see like sender links with a lot of metadata. But this is really interesting that you actually get the original message. Downturns. Oh yes, sure.
You said that with the feed you get also the likes, like who like the page and so on.
Yeah.
And you said before that Omnica has up 10,000 likes, but no reply on the blog. It's like if you get, can you reply to all the people that like the page and say, oh, thank you, something like that?
The problem is you need this comment ID. The private reply hash, the edge that you have here. So I've only found this edge which takes the comment ID and allows to open the messaging queue. That doesn't work with a like ID, right? It only works with a comment ID. So that's why you need a comment, and that's why you need the comment ID, which can actually go and trigger the page. But if you take that, that works. That works.
But it could be like comment.
It could be a like on a comment. Yeah, I haven't tested that. That could be possible because then you
also get the other likes.
Yeah. Maybe get a comment ID. It's like to wake up all 10 seconds.
I guess comment ID is regarding to the.
Yeah. At some point, you have to get a comment ID, and then you can use the private reply to actually issue that. So downturns, right? Downturns is, for now, you can only send text, which is pretty interesting. You can only send a pure text message. You can not send a carousel or a quick reply or whatever. And it's kind of pushy, but yeah, that's the problem, right? Yeah.
But that's just first message, right?
Yes, it's just the first message. So the first message is just text only, and within that message, you have to tell the user, write me, type something. And then they send the first actual message, And this is then the message that gives you the full-blown bots, everything you need, access, tokens, whatever.
Okay, so you cannot trigger your bots in
You
response.
cannot fully, it's like a fake trigger. Like you can send one text message, and if that's provocative enough, and if that's engaging enough, then the user types the next message, and then you're in the full circle of the bot.
I mean, it is like a read message I get on a mobile phone spread.
Yeah, it's a fully real message. The only thing it has on top, this is in response to this post, which is good UX. But it feels like a real message. You get a notification, it's all full there.
So you don't have to trigger the get started message. And you also don't get the contents of the get started message.
What you would have to do if you want to go in that flow, you would have to manually take this as a get started and then issue a text message, because you can only do text. And then you would say type hi, and then you would take this hi as the get started.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit of a downturn that you can only do like text for now. You have to work around that. That's obviously the downturn. I think they haven't thought that through. I think they haven't thought about that angle at all. How that you can use that.
And what's your experience? Like people saying like some really deeper type thing?
I think so.
Yes.
I think so, yeah.
Because it's really disruptive.
I mean, do you think that people, because we did that with Tony?
Yeah. So what we did was we made a campaign. It's a football chatbot. So we made a posting saying, hey, I'm a new chatbot, Tony, and comment on this post if you want to win tickets for the next soccer game. And who you want to go with, a friend or something.
So that's a cool thing. And then a lot of people come.
And then the bot answered and said, okay, please type Tony to register for the raffle. Okay. So, and then once they type in Tony, they were registered. And you have them in the bot. But then we need to trigger after that they're getting started onboarding. So we need to also find out if the user is already a user of the bot or if it's a new user. So they don't know. Because just like this, you get a user ID, but it's not the same user ID that is your page scope.
You don't know another scope user ID, because obviously it's not coming from the real messaging API, so like matching those two is really something you have to figure out.
So when you revise, you get the original again.
Yeah, if you get the original messenger ID, you don't have that.
Did they for businesses that will provide some kind of possibility to match actually?
That's only between the app and the bot. This matching they did, this one between. So it feels like they're giving you a temporary ID, because you can actually use that ID and fire against the user interface. But the only thing you get is a name string that is first name, last name within one string. So it feels totally different than what we use, where you get like a first name, last name, and separate fields. So it feels like it's coming on a totally different subsystem. Right? But you can obviously split it and then you have the first name, last name. But it feels like a totally different thing, because it's actually coming from the graph API and not the messaging API.
The custom matching API, you mentioned, is basically if you have like a Facebook login or Facebook app, and we have those user IDs, then you can match them against the page score IDs. Save those for the numbers. But now we have to mention with custom code, like message with only 100 something, and then you mention like, hey, I did this kind of 100. But nobody will.
That's so does it work? Hell yes, it does. Right? This is a really good way. Like I think you will agree. It's a nice way of onboarding things. We have done that also with Iconic, and that works incredibly well, because it's a really nice flow of people just putting a comment in there on the page. Then the messaging pops up. They write Tony, and then they're immediately in the bot. And it feels really natural because it pops up in their flow, and it really leads them through it. So it's a really nice way of getting users in. Thanks to the graphic API, we can actually do this. I haven't deep enough into all this graphing, maybe there's another hack that you can do. This one I found with the private replies, but it would be interesting how you can play around. So if you play around with it and you find a really nice angle, let me know. This is really curious. I'm really curious about what you can do with Graph API and messaging API. Yeah.
Does it work with comments somewhere else? Not just on the
So since you describe to your feed, you get all the comments in that feed, which is still a bit of a problem because you get all the comments. And if, for example, I only have comment to this single post, right, then you would have to like filter for only comments on that single post. So for example, you have here you have the post ID that the comment is responding to, and then you have to filter so you don't get someone like commenting on a year-old post and you still hook him up. That would be possible, but in that scenario, we wanted to have just the comments from this single post, which is kind of like a chicken egg problem because you have to code the ID before you know the ID. Right?
But now you know how efficient is the campaign.
Right?
Now you know how efficient is each campaign.
Yeah, exactly. Because you can say this comment gets so many bot users, you can tag them. Yeah.
Sure.
You mentioned the one only can respond in text. It doesn't matter if the comment is a text comment or, for example, a GIF or something.
So I think it has to be real text, like a full-blown text, no image, no carousel.
I think the question was that if I just reply with a GIF or a smiley or emoji.
Oh, that doesn't matter. Yeah, emojis, stickers, whatever. You get it. I think you will get here something like a URL. But you can then only reply.
Could this be a performance issue? Like when you have a huge game and there's a million of people like commenting, like in the Crawley Hits game, as it was, you have millions of comments, and that's all going on your bots.
Yeah, you get a shitload of requests.
Yeah. So like you're slowing down your bot basically. You're slowing down your bot, like performance problems, like
yeah, you kind
not
of
slowing you just
you kind of slow it down, but in fact, what you do is like you take the request, you look if it's a comment, and then you throw it away.
Yeah, but it's really a shitload of.
If you're a huge page like Unica with like 15,000 likes and you activate all of them. I think they do that up to a certain, like when you have a certain sort of pop group.
So once you get like 100 comments seconds, you just send them an image. So it's one request to take 100 comments.
Yeah.
So they know how to do.
Yeah.
So that's how
still, yeah.
Which is what you said, I think, 2 years ago, that you would DDoS yourself if you run all through an LP.
Yeah.
So if you take all the comments, you get 100 in a batch, you run all through in an LP, you can kind of just. So you have to be careful about who is you actually bottleneck.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
One thing we also found out is that it needs to go through a review on Facebook if you want the permission to host the private replies. So it's a different review than the messenger review. So
you have to go through the graph API review. Yeah, okay.
I don't think this is actually the intended purpose. This net.
This is the intended purpose.
But the review says.
Yeah, actually, here is at least.
I think it's like we are kind of different teams and
different people. How long did the review was like 1 day?
yeah, I think the first one didn't go through. They said, no, we don't understand what you're doing. And then the second one, but probably didn't understand even what this is. API is usually used for apps.
If it doesn't go through, just keeps it.
So 2 days.
Mostly
That's really helpful.
I think, a really nice method of attracting users, especially in this early stage of acquiring and then activating. And probably it's also really nice now that I think about reactivating, because you match the same user again, doesn't get a comment, interacts with your page, and hook him back into the chat log. So yeah, play around with it. I think that's really powerful in terms of like discovery of solution, in terms of like getting people in. If you need anything in terms of technical, please come to me. I'm happy to share all I have on that. Very nice. Thanks.
Okay, that's basically it. I mean, we have like one room on the channel on the Facebook page, but unfortunately the guys from Harry's spots had to cancel short notice. So usually it's not just Jacob and me talking about what's Meetup, but we only got the guys from Harry's spots and they had to cancel short notice. So in the future,
we'll do a presentation.
That's good. So in the future, if you want to share some experiences, talking about bots, messaging, communication, some cool hacks, please reach out to us, and we would be super happy to have you here on stage. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and happy bingo.